She looked ordinary, tired teacher in faded jeans, seat 12F. Nobody knew the woman with the coffee-stained hoodie was Phoenix 1, legendary fighter pilot. When a dying pilot's mayday crackled through the cabin, the myth became real. Some legends never die. They just wait for the call. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Maya Chen looked like anyone else on flight 627. Faded jeans, an old university hoodie with a coffee stain on the sleeve, dark hair tied back in a messy bun. She sat in seat 12F, a worn thriller novel open in her lap, her eyes tracking the words without really reading them. The flight attendant poured her coffee. The college kid beside her scrolled through his phone. The businessman across the aisle typed furiously on his laptop. Nobody looked at her twice. That's exactly how she wanted it. She was 41 years old and looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from a bad night's sleep, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone carrying years of weight on their shoulders. The kind of tired that settles into your eyes and never quite leaves. The flight from Houston to Seattle was half empty. Mid-afternoon on a Tuesday. Mostly business travelers and a few families. Peaceful. Boring. Perfect. Maya stared out the window at the clouds below, her mind far away. She thought about her classroom back in Austin. 28 ninth graders who had no idea their biology teacher used to do something very different with her life. They knew her as Ms. Chen, who made terrible jokes about mitochondria and brought homemade cookies on test days. They didn't know about the other her. The one she buried 4 years ago. For rows ahead, a group of young men in Air Force dress blues laughed together. Their squadron patches caught the overhead lights. F-22 pilots, probably heading to some event or ceremony. They looked so young. So confident. So sure of themselves. Maya felt ancient watching them. One of them, a tall captain with an easy smile, was telling a story. His voice carried back to her seat. "You guys ever hear about Phoenix 1, he said. My instructor at Nellis told me about her. First woman to lead an F-22 squadron in combat. Flew something like 200 missions. Never lost a single pilot under her command." Another pilot laughed. "Come on, Harris. That's gotta be an exaggeration. Nobody's that good." "I'm serious," Captain Harris insisted. "The old guys swear she was real. They say she could fly like she was born with wings. My instructor said watching her in the cockpit was like watching an artist paint. Everything precise. Everything perfect." A third pilot chimed in. "So what happened to her? This Phoenix 1? Harris shrugged. "Nobody knows. She just disappeared one day. Retired or quit or something. The stories say she lost someone on her last mission. Her best friend. After that, she was gone." Maya's hands tightened on her book. The pages crumpled slightly under her fingers. She forced herself to relax. Forced herself to breathe. Let them talk. Let them think it's just a story. Let Phoenix 1 stay dead. "I think it's probably just a legend," one of the younger pilots said. "You know how the military loves its myths." "Maybe," Harris said quietly. "But I hope it's real. I hope someone that good actually existed. Gives the rest of us something to aim for." Maya closed her eyes. She remembered what it felt like to be that young. That hopeful. Before she learned that skill and courage weren't always enough. Before she learned that you could do everything right and still lose the people you love. 20 years ago, Maya Chen had been the best pilot anyone had ever seen. She didn't come from a military family. Her parents owned a small restaurant in San Francisco. She'd paid for college by waiting tables and washing dishes. Joined ROTC because it offered scholarship money. Found herself in a cockpit and discovered she was born for it. Flight came naturally to her. What took other pilots months to learn, she mastered in weeks. Her instructors called her a natural. Her fellow students called her lucky. She knew it was neither. It was hours of study. Thousands of simulator runs. Obsessive preparation. She learned everything about her aircraft, every system, every backup, every possible failure mode. When she made captain at 28, she was the youngest in her class. When she earned her F-22 qualification 2 years later, she was one of only 3 women flying Raptors. When they gave her a squadron to command at 32, she became the first woman to lead fighter pilots in active combat. They gave her the call sign Phoenix 1 after her first combat mission. The enemy had shot up her aircraft, damaged hydraulics, electrical failures, fuel leak. Any sane pilot would have ejected. Maya had flown the crippled jet 200 miles back to base and landed it so smoothly that ground crew didn't realize how bad the damage was until they inspected it. "You died up there and came back," her commander had said. Phoenix. For 8 years, she lived up to the name. 197 combat missions. 63 confirmed enemy kills. Developed tactics that became standard training. Wrote manuals that pilots still studied. And through it all, she never lost a single pilot under her command. Her wingman was Marcus Webb. They'd met in flight school and bonded immediately. He was funny where she was serious. Relaxed where she was intense. He made her laugh on days when the pressure threatened to crush her. She kept him alive on missions that should have killed him. They were a perfect team. Until mission 198. The target was an enemy communications facility deep in hostile territory. Intelligence said it was lightly defended. Intelligence was wrong. They flew into a trap, surface-to-air missiles, fighter jets, ground fire from every direction. Maya had called for the abort, led her squadron out of the kill zone. Everyone made it except Marcus. His aircraft took a missile hit. Total hydraulic failure. The same failure that had made her Phoenix 1 all those years ago. She'd talked him through it. Step by step. The same procedures she'd developed. The same techniques that had saved her life. But his aircraft was too damaged. The failure too complete. When his ejection seat fired, enemy ground fire found him on the way down. Maya landed safely. Filed her report. Attended the funeral. Stood at attention while they presented his wife with a folded flag. Watched his 3-year-old daughter cry for a daddy who would never come home. 2 weeks later, Maya Chen resigned her commission. Removed her uniform. Packed away her medals. Became a civilian. Phoenix 1 was dead. The overhead speakers crackled to life, snapping Maya back to the present. The captain's voice came through, trying to sound calm but failing. "Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any military personnel on board, please press your call button immediately. We have an emergency situation." The F-22 pilots shot out of their seats. Their call buttons lit up like Christmas lights. A flight attendant rushed over, spoke quickly to them, then led them toward the front of the plane. Maya watched them go. Her heart started beating faster. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The commercial plane's PA system suddenly filled with static. Then a voice broke through, young, male, absolutely terrified. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Falcon 2. Complete hydraulic failure at 30,000 feet. I've lost all primary controls. Aircraft won't respond. I'm going to have to eject in 90 seconds and less." The transmission cut out. Static roared through the cabin. Passengers looked around nervously. Some pulled out their phones. Others whispered to each other. The flight attendants tried to maintain calm, but Maya could see the fear in their faces. Up front, she could hear the F-22 pilots crowding around some kind of radio connection. Captain Harris's voice, "Falcon 2, this is Captain Harris, 95th Fighter Squadron. We're on a civilian aircraft trying to relay. What's your position?" More static. The dying pilot's voice returned, barely audible through the interference. I can't, controls aren't responding, altitude dropping, losing her. Maya could hear the desperation in every word. She knew that fear. She'd heard it before, 4 years ago, in a voice she'd loved like a brother. Marcus. The memory hit her like a punch to the gut. His voice over the radio, trying to stay calm even as his aircraft fell from the sky. Her frantic instructions. His trust in her, complete and absolute, right up until the moment he ejected. She'd failed him. Done everything right and still failed him. Up front, the pilots were struggling. The signal's too weak, one of them said. The civilian radio can't handle military frequencies properly. We can hear him but we can't get through clearly enough to help. We're losing him, Captain Harris said, and Maya could hear the helplessness in his voice. The same helplessness she'd felt 4 years ago. Through the static, the dying pilot's voice, please, somebody. I have a wife, 2-year-old son named Jake. Maya's entire body went cold. A son. A little boy who would grow up without his father. Just like Marcus's daughter Elena had. She couldn't do this again. Couldn't take that responsibility. Couldn't risk failing someone else. But the pilot's voice came through again, breaking on the last word, Jake, tell him his daddy loved him. Maya stood up before she could stop herself. Maya walked toward the front of the plane on legs that felt like lead. Every step was a battle against the voice in her head screaming at her to sit back down. To stay invisible. To let someone else handle it. But there wasn't anyone else. The flight attendants were too busy trying to calm passengers. Maya slipped past them into the forward galley where the young pilots were gathered around a radio unit patched into the cockpit. You need to bypass the compression filter and route through the emergency transponder, she said quietly. 5 heads turned. 5 pairs of eyes stared at her, this random woman in a coffee-stained hoodie. Captain Harris frowned. Ma'am, I appreciate the thought, but this is a military frequency issue. I know what it is. Maya's voice cut through his objection like a blade. The civilian radio is compressing your bandwidth. You're losing signal integrity. You need to manually reroute through the aircraft's emergency channel and boost the gain. I can do it. Harris hesitated. Something in her eyes, something hard and certain and ancient, made him step aside. Okay. Show me. Maya's hands moved across the radio controls. Her fingers remembered, even though she'd sworn she'd forgotten. She adjusted frequencies, bypassed limiters, rerouted signals through backup systems. Within 30 seconds, the static cleared. She picked up the handset. Took a breath. And when she spoke, her voice transformed into something else entirely, calm, commanding, absolute. Falcon 2, this is Phoenix 1. Level your wings. Disengage the autopilot override. Switch to manual trim control immediately. The silence that followed was total and complete. Then, through the radio, barely a whisper, Phoenix 1. That's not possible, you're. Falcon 2, I don't care what's possible. You have about 60 seconds before you lose all remaining pressure. You will do exactly what I say, exactly when I say it, and you will go home to Jake. Are we absolutely clear? Yes, yes ma'am. Phoenix 1, I copy. Captain Harris stared at Maya like she'd materialized from a dream. One of the other pilots breathed, holy shit. It's her. It's actually her. Maya ignored them. Her entire focus narrowed to the voice on the radio and the aircraft falling from the sky. Falcon 2, what's your name? Lieutenant David Park, ma'am. Okay, David. Listen to me very carefully. Your hydraulic failure has killed primary controls, but you still have mechanical linkage to your tail surfaces. I'm going to talk you through a recovery procedure that's not in your manual. I wrote it after my own hydraulic failure 17 years ago. Do you trust me? A pause. Then, stronger, yes, ma'am. I trust you. Good. Here's what we're going to do. For the next 8 minutes, Maya guided David Park through an impossible recovery. Every word was surgical. Every instruction precise. She wasn't reading from memory, she was reliving her own near-death experience, channeling muscle memory from a crisis she'd survived nearly 2 decades ago. David, throttle back to 60%. You're going to feel the nose want to drop. Let it. Phoenix 1, I'm dropping fast, altitude passing through 26,000. Trust me. Let her drop. You need to build airspeed for control authority. The manual trim only works if you have sufficient airflow over the surfaces. The young pilot's breathing was ragged over the radio. Maya could hear his fear. Could feel it like it was her own. She remembered that fear. The certainty of death. The desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, you could cheat it one more time. You're doing great, David, she said, her voice steady as stone. Your aircraft wants to fly. She's trying to tell you what she needs. Listen to her. Phoenix 1, I can't feel anything. The stick's not responding. You're not feeling it because you're gripping too hard. Death grip. Every pilot does it when they panic. Relax your hand. Feather the controls. Tiny movements. Barely touch it. Silence. Maya could imagine him forcing his fingers to relax, fighting every instinct that told him to hang on tighter. Then, okay. Okay, I feel it. I've got something. It's faint but I've got it. That's the mechanical linkage engaging. Good. Now, throttle up to 75% and give me a 2-degree right bank. Just 2 degrees. Don't overcorrect. 2 degrees right. Phoenix 1, I'm banking. It's responding. You're flying, David. See? Now bring it back to level. Smooth and gentle. Treat her like something precious. Coming back to level, holy shit, I'm actually flying this thing. Around Maya, the young F-22 pilots watched in silent awe. Captain Harris had tears in his eyes. They were witnessing something they'd only heard about in stories, Phoenix 1, the legend herself, saving a pilot's life with nothing but her voice and her experience. Minutes stretched like hours. The commercial flight had slowed its descent, circling to give David time to work. Maya's voice never wavered. When the pilot panicked, she steadied him. When he doubted, she commanded. When he thought he was dying, she reminded him of his son. David, you're at 12,000 feet. Nearest runway is Kirtland Air Force Base, bearing 180, 22 miles. You're going to make it home. Phoenix 1, I can't see it. All my instruments are dead. No navigation, no altitude, nothing. You don't need instruments. Trust your eyes. Trust your instincts. Look out the canopy. Look for the runway. Static filled the silence. Maya waited, barely breathing. I see it. Phoenix 1, I have visual on the runway. Perfect. Now line up. Don't overthink it. Your body knows what to do. Let muscle memory take over. Lining up. Phoenix 1, I'm too high. I'm coming in too fast and too high. S-turn. Give me a 30-degree left bank, hold for 3 seconds, then 30 right. Bleed off that altitude and airspeed. Left bank, holding, right bank. Phoenix 1, that worked. I'm lined up and the approach looks good. Excellent. At 100 feet, reduce throttle to idle. At 50 feet, gentle flare. Don't force it. Don't slam it. Let her settle like she wants to kiss the runway. The longest silence of Maya's life followed. She gripped the handset so hard her knuckles turned white. The young pilots around her held their breath. Someone in the cabin behind them was praying quietly. Then, gear down. I'm on the runway. Phoenix 1, I'm down. I'm rolling out. I'm safe. I'm actually safe. The galley erupted. The pilots cheered. Flight attendants who'd been listening started crying. Captain Harris grabbed Maya's shoulders, tears streaming down his face. Maya lowered the handset with shaking hands and closed her eyes. Her legs almost gave out. She felt like she'd just landed the aircraft herself. The adrenaline that had kept her focus drained away, leaving her hollow and exhausted. You saved him, Harris said, his voice full of wonder. You actually saved him. Maya nodded, unable to speak. In her mind, she saw Marcus's face. Heard his last transmission. Watched his parachute fall. But this time, the pilot had made it. This time, a little boy named Jake would grow up with his father. You're Phoenix 1, Harris said. The actual Phoenix 1. Everyone said you were gone. Retired. Disappeared. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. I am. I just couldn't let someone else die if I could stop it. Another pilot stepped forward. The things you did, the procedures you used, some of that wasn't standard training. You were improvising. Not improvising, Maya said quietly. Remembering. I developed those techniques after my own hydraulic failure. After I realized the manual didn't cover everything. After I learned that sometimes you have to trust your instincts more than your training. Harris pulled out his phone, made a call. Sir, this is Captain Harris. You need to alert Kirtland that we had assistance from, yes sir, Phoenix 1. The actual Phoenix 1. She's here. She's real. She just saved David Park's life. Maya shook her head. Please, I just want to. Ma'am, Harris interrupted gently. You don't get to disappear again. Not after this. What you just did, that pilot is alive because of you. His family gets to keep him because of you. You don't get to just walk away from that. When the commercial flight landed in Seattle 40 minutes later, Maya tried to slip away. Just blend back into the crowd and disappear. Return to being nobody. It didn't work. As she stepped off the plane, she found herself facing a wall of uniforms. Air Force officers. A 2-star general. An honor guard. Behind them, news cameras and reporters who'd somehow learned what happened mid-flight. The general approached and saluted sharply. Captain Chen. Phoenix 1. On behalf of the United States Air Force, welcome back. Maya didn't salute. She was in jeans and a hoodie. She wasn't a captain anymore. She was just a high school teacher who wanted to go home. Sir, I'm retired. I'm just a civilian now. The general smiled gently. A civilian who just saved one of our pilots using techniques you pioneered 17 years ago. Phoenix 1, you may have taken off the uniform, but you never stopped being Air Force. That much is clear. A commotion at the edge of the crowd. A young man in a flight suit pushed through, Lieutenant David Park, still wearing his survival gear, his face pale but alive. Behind him, a young woman holding a toddler. David approached Maya, his eyes red. His hands were shaking. Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant David Park. Falcon 2. You saved my life. He turned to the woman. This is my wife, Jennifer. And this is Jake. The little boy looked at Maya with curious eyes. David's voice broke, he still has a daddy because of you. Maya's composure finally shattered. For years of holding it together. For years of guilt and grief and telling herself she'd done the right thing by walking away. All of it crumbled. Tears spilled down her face. I couldn't save everyone. I lost someone once. My wingman, Marcus. I did everything right and I still couldn't save him. I couldn't. Jennifer stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Maya. The young mother hugged her tight while Jake watched, confused. But you saved David, Jennifer whispered. You saved my husband. You saved Jake's father. That matters. That matters so much. The F-22 pilots from the flight formed a spontaneous line. One by one, they saluted her. Captain Harris spoke for all of them. We study your missions at flight school. We memorize your tactics. We analyze your decisions. But today we learned what Phoenix 1 really means. It's not just about skill or training or talent. It's about never giving up on your wingman. Even 17 years later. Even when you think you're done. Even when you're terrified of failing again. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You lost Marcus. I read about that mission. You did everything right. Sometimes everything right isn't enough. But today everything right was enough. And a pilot is alive because you were willing to try again. Another pilot spoke up, younger, barely 25. My instructor at Nellis was in your squadron. He said the day you resigned was the saddest day of his career. He said the Air Force lost its best pilot. But I think maybe we just forgot that Phoenix 1 doesn't die. She just waits for the moment she's needed. The general handed Maya something. Her old squadron patch, the one she'd packed away 4 years ago, now mounted in a shadow box with new words engraved beneath it, Phoenix 1, legends never die, they rise again. Maya stared at it, at the emblem she'd worn with such pride, at the call sign she'd thought she'd buried forever. Sir, I can't. You already did, the general said quietly. The question is, what happens next? 3 months later, Maya stood in front of her 9th grade biology class. On the wall behind her desk, a new poster had appeared. A photo of an F-22 Raptor in flight, sunlight gleaming off its wings, with text beneath reading, Courage, Skill, Service, the Phoenix 1 story. A student raised her hand. Ms. Chen, is it true you used to be a fighter pilot? Maya smiled. It still felt strange, this new version of herself, not hiding who she'd been, but not leading with it either. A long time ago, yes. Why'd you stop flying? Maya paused. She'd asked herself that question 1,000 times. I lost someone I cared about. My best friend. And for a long time, I thought the only way to honor his memory was to stop doing the thing that got him killed. I thought if I never flew again, I'd never lose anyone else. A boy in the back raised his hand. But you helped that pilot. The one on the news. You saved his life. I did. So, you were wrong. About stopping? Maya considered that. Not wrong, exactly. I needed to stop. I needed time to grieve, to heal, to figure out who I was without the uniform. But I learned something important that day on the plane. I learned that walking away from something doesn't mean it stops being part of you. The skills are still there. The knowledge is still there. The person you were is still inside you, waiting for the moment you need them. Another student spoke up, what if you're not sure you can help? What if you're afraid you'll mess up? Maya looked at him for a long moment. She saw her younger self in that question, the doubt, the fear, the weight of responsibility. You help anyway, she said quietly. Because trying and failing is better than not trying at all. Because the people who need you don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to show up. They need you to care enough to try. She walked to her desk, picked up the shadow box with her squadron patch. She'd brought it to school, after weeks of debate, finally deciding that maybe her students should know this part of her. This was my call sign. Phoenix 1. They gave it to me because I survived something that should have killed me. But I learned that being a phoenix isn't about surviving. It's about rising again. It's about understanding that sometimes you burn down to ashes, and that's okay. What matters is whether you're willing to rise. The class was silent. Teenagers who usually couldn't sit still for 5 minutes sat transfixed. I thought I was done, Maya continued. I thought Phoenix 1 died when I lost Marcus. But that day on the plane, I realized I'd been wrong. Phoenix 1 didn't die. She just needed time in the ashes. She needed to learn that you can't let fear of failing again stop you from trying. After class, Captain Harris appeared at her classroom door. They'd stayed in touch since that day, occasional emails and phone calls. Today he wore his dress blues, medals gleaming. Thought you might want to know, he said. David Park just got promoted. His commander specifically cited his performance during the hydraulic failure. Said the way he stayed calm under pressure and executed complex procedures was exemplary. Maya smiled. He did all the flying. I just talked. You did more than talk. You gave him hope when he had none. You gave him confidence when he was terrified. You gave him a reason to keep trying. Harris pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. David Park with his family, all of them wearing Phoenix 1 t-shirts. He wanted me to tell you that Jake says your name now. Phoenix 1 is his favorite thing. Maya laughed, tears in her eyes. His favorite thing should be dinosaurs or trucks. Not some old pilot. Some old pilot who saved his dad's life. Harris's expression turned serious. Listen, I know you love teaching. But the Air Force has been asking about you. They want to bring you back as a consultant. Help update training procedures, teach the new techniques you developed. Share your experience with the next generation of pilots. Maya shook her head slowly. I'm not ready to go back. Not full time. But. She looked at her classroom, at the posters and projects and evidence of young minds learning. Maybe I could do both. Teach here most of the year. Spend summers at Nellis, working with your instructors. Help make sure the next generation knows what to do when everything goes wrong. Harris grinned. That would be perfect. Absolutely perfect. That evening, Maya sat in her small apartment, looking at the shadow box on her coffee table. Next to it, a new photo, Lieutenant David Park holding his son, both of them grinning at the camera. The text Jennifer had sent with it read, Jake wants to be a pilot when he grows up. Because Phoenix 1 saved his daddy. Thank you for giving us our future. Maya's phone buzzed. An email from Captain Harris with an attachment. She opened it and found herself looking at a new Air Force training manual. The cover page read, Advanced Hydraulic Failure Recovery Procedures, developed by Captain Maya Chen, Phoenix 1, updated 2024. Her techniques. Her procedures. Her hard-won knowledge. Now codified and official. Now something that would save lives for generations to come. Another email arrived, this one from Marcus's widow, Elizabeth. They'd stayed in touch over the years, though it had been painful for both of them. Maya, I saw the news. I saw what you did. Marcus would be so proud. He always said you were the best pilot he'd ever seen. He always said if anyone could cheat death, it was you. I'm glad you're flying again, even if it's just with your voice. I'm glad Phoenix 1 came back. The world needs her. Love, Elizabeth. Attached was a photo of Marcus's daughter, Elena, now 7 years old, wearing a flight suit for Halloween. The caption, she wants to be just like Aunt Phoenix. Maya cried then, properly cried for the first time in 4 years. She cried for Marcus, for the guilt she'd carried, for the years she'd spent hiding. But she also cried with relief. With gratitude. With the understanding that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't failed him. Maybe she'd honored him by surviving, by learning, by being ready when another pilot needed her. The next morning, Maya added a new section to her biology curriculum. The science of flight. She would teach her students about aerodynamics and physics and engineering. But she would also teach them about courage and responsibility and rising from ashes. Because Maya Chen had learned something important in Seat 12F of that commercial flight, legends don't die. They just wait. They rest in the ashes until the moment they're needed. And when that moment comes, they rise. Phoenix 1 hadn't died 4 years ago. She'd just been waiting for someone who needed her. For a young pilot falling from the sky. For a little boy who deserved to know his father. For a chance to prove that failure isn't the end, it's just the beginning of learning how to rise again. Some heroes wear capes. Some fly fighter jets. And some sit quietly in Seat 12F, wearing coffee-stained hoodies, waiting for the moment they're needed. Maya Chen had learned to be all three.